Hello, friends. I'm Rosie Acosta, your host and guide on this journey to self-discovery and radical love. I've walked a path filled with challenges. Growing up in East LA during the '92 LA riots, it left me searching for meaning, for mentors, for a way to truly understand the purpose of life. But you know what I found? The power of conversation. As a first-gen Mexican American, these conversations became my compass, offering insight, support, and an endless amount of inspiration. So I decided to create a space where we can share these conversations with you, our community. And that's how the Radically Loved podcast was born. Join me as we dive into topics like mindfulness, spirituality, self-love, and the keys to overall healthy living. I'm joined by my dear friend, fellow author, producer, and teacher, Tessa Tovar.
Hi, I'm Tessa, and I'm grateful to be part of this community because it teaches me so much about what it means to be human. Ever since I was a little one, I was always asking my dad the deeper questions in life. Why are we here? What happens when we are gone? What is the purpose of life? I love this show because I get to ask the questions that cut right to the meaning of life. I've learned that no matter how much we want the path to be clear or straightforward, it rarely is. And that is actually part of the beauty that creates a radically loved life.
Please do us a favor, share the episodes you love with your friends, and leave us a review. Together, we'll learn how to create a life that's truly, deeply, radically loved. Let's begin.
Welcome back to the Radically Loved podcast. This is Tessa. I'm so excited to introduce our guest today. We're having Elisa Rossi on the show. Elisa is an author, recipe developer, and the content creator behind Happy Skin Kitchen, which is a lot more than a cookbook. There's a lot of recipes in here that are not only for you to consume and eat, but also to nourish your skin on the outside. So I've been loving it, and I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I hope you get an opportunity to pick up this book because it is life-changing, let me tell you. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Elisa Rossi. Elisa, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show with us today. Rosie and I have been looking forward to this episode for a long time. She and I are both obsessed with really good, nourishing, tasty food. And I've been on this journey of skincare, kind of similar to you since I was a young one. I also suffered from, well, actually that went into my 30s. I had really bad acne into my 30s, and I finally ended up taking Accutane, which it seems like you got to avoid. So I'm really glad you got to avoid that. So today there's so many directions I want to go, but I want the audience to get a little bit of a lay of the land with you. You know, I want to hear about your skincare journey, kind of what took you there and how you started to develop recipes, how it's so important to pay attention to what we eat in terms of what goes into the body. It has obviously an external effect on how we look. I know you have some favorite skincare ingredients in terms of the ingredients that you use to cook with. And there's a lot more, but I'll just start with that. So could we start with your own personal skincare journey?
Yeah, sure. So I think everything kind of started when I was 23 and I recently just moved to London from Italy. And out of the blue, I started to get really bad hormonal breakouts all over my chin, my jawline. And I never experienced anything like that, even in my teenage years. So I really didn't know what to do with them. I was very, I would say at the time, clueless about anything that got to do with health and nutrition. So my first kind of port of action was to go to the doctor and then to a dermatologist eventually. And I got prescribed kind of, some different type of medication, antibiotics. I tried so many different cream and none of them really actually worked. So I was kind of a little bit frustrated. I was very self-conscious. It affected massively my self-esteem, my confidence. So I eventually went to my gynecologist, actually, because I did have the doctor was saying they're hormonal related. And the gynecologist confirmed that they were definitely related to my hormones, and that the best kind of solution was to get on the contraceptive pill. Because I used to take the contraceptive pill for a very long time, and then I stopped. And she was like, I'm sure if you take it again, you probably will clear your skin very, very quickly. And it did clear my skin very quickly, I have to say. It was kind of like a magic cure in a way. So I took the pill for quite a long time because I didn't want to have, issue with my skin again. But then, like, at the back of my mind, I always thought I cannot be on the pill forever. This is not a long-term solution. So eventually I did come off the pill, and I kind of naively thought, you know what, maybe it was just a phase of my life. Maybe the breakouts, they won't come back. But they did, and they were worse than ever. They were even angrier and redder, I think, because my hormones were once again all over the place because I was on the pill for so long. And then when you come out, obviously, there is this kind of like effect of your body just readjusting, I guess. So that's really when I was like, okay, I need to do something more long term. I need to really dig deep and find out why I keep getting these, hormonal breakouts. So that's when I really kind of like dive deep into health and wellness. I just went to Google and I started Googling, researching, reading blogs. And the more I was learning about it, the more I kind of learned about the link between skin health and, your diet. Again, I was very clueless at the time. It was also like almost 12 years ago. So there was not the conversation that we have now about, holistic health and lifestyle and diet, how everything is kind of interlinked. It was much, much different back then. So and that's when I started changing my diet. So I wasn't particularly unhealthy, I would say. Growing up in Italy in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of like home cooked food, but I also wasn't particularly healthy either, I would say, especially when I moved to London. I was kind of 23, 24. So I was just living off like convenience food and like, a pasta sauce and a bag of pasta. That was kind of my dinner most nights. So that's when I really started changing my diet. I kind of start, slowly and gradually moving towards a more plant-based approach. So at the beginning, I cut out things like refined sugar, which obviously are not great for us. And also there was a lot of like research about, the link between hormonal acne and dairy products. So dairy also is something that I decided to cut out from my diet. And eventually it kind of snowballed into being fully plant-based and just eating a plant-based diet. I felt really good on it. I definitely had way more energy. My digestion was better. My skin finally starting to clear. It took a long time, by the way. It wasn't like an overnight fix. It took probably a couple of years to really start seeing my skin clear again. And it was a lot of like trial and errors, because I do think we're all very different people. We all live different lives in different parts of the world. So you really need to get curious about your body, get curious about what works for you, what doesn't, what makes you feel good, what doesn't make you feel good, and then kind of like go on your own journey of discovering what works for your health and for your skin. I guess the bottom line for me was really to kind of start taking care of myself on a holistic level. So obviously food play a massive role in it, cooking from scratch, eating lots of fruit and vegetables, lots of whole food, trying to stay away from like ultra processed food, which we all know now they're not great for us, regardless whether we have screen problems or not. And then also looking after my sleep, make sure I was getting enough sleep every night, my stress levels, making sure I move my body, I get outside every day. It's really a whole 360-degree approach, I would say.
Wow, what a journey. Okay, so I have so many questions. I do want to start by defining a couple of terms that I think that many of us probably are already familiar with, but I think a lot of us struggle to really understand when we're picking ingredients from the grocery store or choosing to make something, what it actually means when we say things like refined sugar, processed foods, and whole foods.
Okay. So refined sugar It's really, it includes a lot of things. So obviously the classic white sugar, but also any kind of sugar. So even like cane sugar or coconut sugar, or even like maple syrup and honey, in a way, they are kind of like a refined product. They're not whole food in itself. So for example, if instead you decide to pick up some dates are still whole food. So you still get the fiber, you still get the minerals, you get the full package. I'm not someone that wants to demonize everything. Absolutely not. I do think if you consume small amount of something, it's not the thing that you consume once a week that is gonna make the biggest impact on your diet. It's what you eat every single day, 3 times a day. That's what really matters. If you eat a cupcake on a Saturday afternoon with your friends, that's gonna have hardly any impact on in your long-term health. And when it comes to ultra-processed food, are basically foods that they are being stripped or everything that, they made them whole food once upon a time, and now they become extremely processed, very low fiber, very low nutrients. So anything, I guess, it's a very broad terms, but you can think of things like your candies, your chocolate bars, your biscuits, your cookies. There's so many; it's impossible to list them all. I would say, if you are a bit confused about where to shop at the grocery store, just focus on things that they don't have an ingredient list. So when you pick up a sweet potato, it's a sweet potato. There is not an ingredient list at the back. The sweet potato is the ingredient. So your broccoli, your nuts and seeds, all your fruits and vegetables, your beans, your chickpeas, the one ingredient is beans and chickpeas. That's all they have. And that's your whole foods. And that's what you want to have, I would say, between 80 and 90% of your diet. It should be whole food. I think the science is very clear on that anyway. And then the other 10, 20%, then obviously you also want to be spontaneous and enjoy life, and you don't want to feel restricted. So the rest 20%, in my opinion, just let it be whatever you fancy it to be. But as long as you focus mostly on whole food, which are not refined, which they have all the vitamins, all the nutrients, then you're golden, really.
Thank you for saying that. I think it's so important for us to not assume that we know exactly what we mean. And yes, I agree, they are broad terms, but I find that in my work with clients as a health coach, it's often assumed that everyone knows what it is when I say refined sugar or ultra processed foods. So thank you for that. The second thing I wanted to unpack a little bit more is, the suggestion that we cook or we eat 90% of our meals in whole foods or from home. So we stay away from those processed foods 90% of the time. And like your example of, eating a cupcake on a Saturday is a good one. I was curious if we could talk a little bit more about what does that actually look like on a week-to-week basis? Mm-hmm. If you were going to write a prescription for someone to eat 80 to 90% whole foods cooked from home, what would that look like on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah. So I guess it always depends on your lifestyle and on your lifestyle and your schedule. There's so many different factors that comes into it. And obviously no one is perfect. I'm not perfect at all. For me personally, I try to look at my week and be like, okay, from Monday to Friday, usually I'm probably going to eat at home. So I make my breakfast, lunch, and dinner from scratch. And then on Friday night, I'll go out with my friends. We have dinner out. I might have a couple of alcoholic drinks and have a good time. And maybe I'll go out again on a Saturday afternoon for lunch or for brunch and whatever. So for me, it comes down to that. So when I'm at home, when I know I'm not going to be out with friends or with families, then I make an effort to make my own meals. Which doesn't have to be particularly complicated or time consuming. There's so many recipes in my book, which they take 20 to 30 minutes. Again, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be super fancy. It just kind of like cooking from scratch is really kind of the base of if you want to really eat healthy, and you also don't want to spend a fortune because you're really in charge of what you put into your meals. So you can really decide how much salt you want to put, how much oil you want to put. When you eat at the restaurant, even the healthiest restaurant, you just don't know how much oil they're using, how much salt they're using. So I think it just makes sense and is much, much cheaper when you cook for yourself instead of like ordering takeaway or ordering pre-made food. Obviously, it does require some time, and I feel aware that everybody's got different schedule. People have kids, have families. I completely understand. I think a little bit of a meal prep, maybe on a Sunday, can really help. Just to prepare a couple of dishes. You can also freeze some of the recipe. I have so many recipes in the book which are freezable, like a stew or a curry. You can make a big batch and then maybe eat one night and freeze the remaining in the freezer in individual portions. So you can just take them out of the freezer and then eat them as you go along. There is so many ways that you can make cooking from scratch quicker and easier, and just, I would say, kind of like more effortless, I guess. But yeah, usually for me it's the weekend where I go out, I enjoy myself, I see my friends. And then when I'm at home Monday to Friday, then I try to focus on just cooking from scratch and just eat as wholesome as I possibly can.
Yeah, I find that so helpful to have, you have to be a human being that gets to go out and celebrate birthdays and hang out with your friends and go to a restaurant. Yes.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's, I pick up a book like this and I get inspired and I feel like really motivated it's almost like I want to jump in with my head and my feet and my arms all at once. And I think that can be really overwhelming and daunting for someone who hasn't done it before, or if they feel like it has to be a total overhaul of lifestyle. So I wanted to hear more about how you did this gradually and why you think it stuck for you over the years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't go cold turkey at all. I knew if I went cold turkey, it would have been completely unsustainable and I would have quit after 2 days. So the first thing I changed for me was actually my breakfast. So I started with that because I think breakfast could be quite a simple thing to change personally. So the first breakfast I made, so usually my breakfast at the time was Starbucks and a croissant. That was kind of like my go-to breakfast. So I changed that to overnight oats, which they're super simple because all you have to do is put everything into a jar the night before, stick them in the fridge, put some fruit on top, and then in the morning before you go to work, you grab the jar and that's your breakfast done. So that literally could not be easier. So I just started with that. And I loved it. It was really nice. It was tasty. I was trying different combination of overnight oats. And then from there, I kind of started to change my lunch. And then I went into dinner. And it's all about, I also think, focusing on incorporating more instead of focusing on taking things out. So for example, if you might be someone that doesn't eat much vegetables. So why don't you start by having an extra side of vegetables with your lunch and dinner? So maybe you really love sweet potato or carrots. Start with those. You don't have to go to kale or broccoli or cauliflower if you don't like those. Start with vegetables that you like and just eat more of those. And then once you feel a little bit more experimental, then maybe go to have more broccoli and cauliflower and kale. And just kind of like start adding in wholesomeness into your diet. And by default, the more kind of processed stuff might become less and less and less. It's definitely an adjustment. Like it's, everybody's different. So if you're not used to eat a lot of fruit and vegetables, if you're not used to eat lots of like wholesome, I would say healthier meal, you might find them a little bit maybe not that interesting at the beginning. If you're used to the lots of like takeaway or pre-made meal, usually they're very salty because they want them to be really tasty. So you might need to give yourself some time to adjust to a new way of eating. But just, try to go in with the idea of adding things into your diet, even if it's just like an extra portion of fruit and vegetables every day, on a week time, that can really snowball into something bigger.
Do you know if you're getting enough magnesium? Because 4 out of 5 Americans aren't. And that's a big problem because magnesium is involved in more than 300 biochemical reactions in your body. Today, I want to talk to you about the most common signs to look for that could indicate you're magnesium deficient. Listen carefully to the end because there's a special offer happening and this could be exactly what you need. Okay, here we go. Are you irritable or anxious? Do you struggle with insomnia? Do you experience muscle cramps or twitches? Do you have high blood pressure? Are you sometimes constipated? There are dozens of symptoms of magnesium deficiency, so these are just a few of the most common ones. Now, here's what most people don't know. Taking just any magnesium supplement won't solve your problem because most supplements use the cheapest kinds that your body can't use or absorb. That's why I exclusively recommend Magnesium Breakthrough. It's the only full-spectrum magnesium supplement with 7 unique forms of magnesium that your body can actually use and absorb. All Bioptimizer supplements are best in class. If for some reason you feel differently, you can get a full refund, no questions asked. They are so confident that they offer 365-day money-back guarantee. Just go to www.bioptimizers.com/radically loved. Use the promo code radicallyloved10. You can get gifts with your purchase. You can get 2 travel-sized bottles of Magnesium Breakthrough. Act fast. This is a limited time offer. Go to bioptimizers.com/radically loved and use the promo code radicallyloved10.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a helpful suggestion. That's what I've done with my husband, who, when I first met him, was Taco Bell, the Hostess cupcakes. Do you have those in London? The Hostess brand?
No, we have Taco Bell. We do have Taco Bell.
Yeah. You know, like Little Debbie snacks, they're like Hostess. Anyways, he was addicted to highly refined, ultra processed foods.
Yeah.
So over time, I would start to add like some vegetables in, and now he's a much better eater. So I find that to be super helpful.
Oh, good.
I wanted to know, a personal selfish question. I was recently diagnosed with rosacea, and I know what you're going to say. Well, I know maybe what you're going to say is, alcohol is one of the big contributors to rosacea, but I know there's other foods that contribute to that skin condition. So would you mind, maybe if you have any thoughts on rosacea in and of itself, and then what foods should I avoid selfishly?
I actually am not an expert on rosacea, I have to say. It's something which I haven't really experienced myself. But I actually had, interesting you told me about rosacea, because I recently, for some very bizarre reason, I had like a period where I was having perioral dermatitis, which is like similar, is an inflammation of your skin. So usually it's around your mouth. I still have it a tiny bit. I feel like it's finally going away. It's around the mouth area or the nose or the chin. And I guess they have some similarity with rosacea. They all stem theoretically from inflammation in the body. So obviously alcohol is a big one when it comes to inflammation. I definitely trying very hard to drink as little as possible. I'm not perfect, as I said at the beginning. I do enjoy a glass of wine or a gin and tonic every now and then with my friends. But I've been trying to be very, very mindful about my alcohol consumption, because unfortunately, alcohol is not good for us in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, it's fun to have, a celebratory drink once in a while, but it's really not good. It's also speeding up aging, increased inflammation. So yeah, from a skincare point of view, I mean, every doctor will agree that alcohol is something that we should really try to avoid as much as possible. But we're all human and no one is perfect. But yeah, and also trying to incorporate lots of anti-inflammatory foods into your diet. So obviously, things like turmeric and ginger, they're really powerful. They're like powerhouses of anti-inflammatory properties. Any kind of like really, all the vibrant fruit and vegetables all have incredible anti-inflammatory properties. So think about your dark leafy greens, your berries, which are loaded with antioxidants. But yeah, those conditions can also stem from stress, for example, which is very hard to really pinpoint and diagnose, because we all go through, I would say, different phases in our life where we might be more stressed out, or we might go through something really difficult. Like my skin is very sensitive also to my emotional state. So if I go through a very difficult time of my life, my skin will flare up. I do think like skin is something that is so holistic, because there's so many different factors that can play a role. But yeah, what have you been trying to do to make it better?
Well, so at the end of the day, I got into this terrible habit a few years ago of having a glass of red wine every night.
Okay.
And it wasn't like I was drinking a whole bottle, but
Yeah.
eventually just that one glass of wine was enough to,
Mm,
I'm sure, in combination with stress and maybe other things that I was eating. Like, I really love spicy foods, and I haven't
yeah.
dove into it that much, but I do believe that maybe spice is one thing that can cause rosacea or exacerbate it.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'm trying to take away is the nightly glass of wine. And I'm trying to find that balance between, like as you say, going out and enjoying a glass of wine with friends. And what I'm really looking for right now is something to replace that evening wind down routine with, because it never works for me to just cut things out cold turkey and not have something, delicious and celebratory to replace it
Yeah.
with, especially after a busy workday.
I mean, it's hard to replace a
I,
glass of wine.
I
A glass of
know.
red wine. I can say kombucha, but it won't be the same.
Yeah, it's not the same, but also I think there's caffeine in kombucha, and I'm pretty sensitive to that late in the day. I was curious though on that note, because I will once in a while have like a sparkling water. In the US, the brand here that's really big is LaCroix, and there's all kinds of other brands out there, but I
Yeah.
don't think those are the best thing to replace with, and I'm not really sure if that's true or not. I think it's again, I haven't researched that, but I don't know if you know anything about those fizzy waters.
I don't, to be honest, I don't really drink. One thing I never liked was fizzy drinks or fizzy water. I don't know. I never had that taste for it. So it's never been an issue for me, fizzy drinks. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of juices and infusions and teas. You can make like hibiscus is really lovely if you make it like a cold hibiscus tea, and then you can add, I don't know, maybe a little bit of fresh orange juice or fresh apple juice to make it a little bit sweeter, because obviously hibiscus tea is quite tart. But hibiscus tea is loaded with antioxidant. Is one of the things that is one of the highest antioxidant content you can find on any kind of herbs and flower. So it's great. It's really, really powerful for that. Might not taste like a glass of red wine, but I'm
might
sure
look
you're still
similar to
very
a glass.
thankful for that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're kind of already headed in this direction. I wanted to ask you about your top 15 quote unquote skin ingredients.
There are loads, so I won't bore the listener with all of them. I'm gonna pick my top, maybe 3 or 4 that I use all the time and I cook with all the time. So, I mean, one of the top one is gonna sound like a massive cliche, but it has to be kale. Any kind of kale, like I guess in the US you call it lacinato kale. In the UK we call it cavolo nero, which is the one that's got a really deep green leaf. They're just so good for us on every level, but especially skincare wise, they are loaded with vitamin E and A, and obviously a good dose of vitamin C. So vitamin E and A are really powerful antioxidants. They basically defend our skin against free radicals, which they do happen naturally, especially as we get older. But I would say that antioxidants are kind of the heroes that we really want to focus on skincare, because we obviously get in touch with things like pollution and exposure of the sun and so many things. So antioxidant is basically what defend us against all of these elements. And then I would say probably sweet potatoes as well. They are a great powerhouse of beta carotene. Beta carotene get transformed in the body in vitamin A. Vitamin A is a powerful antioxidant. Again, is basically what speeds up cell turnover. So that's what really helps you when it comes to fine lines and wrinkles. You probably have seen plenty of vitamin A on the products on the market, which they're great. We should 100% use those, but also make sure we eat vitamin A from the inside out. And then my third one probably is going to be walnuts, which they're slightly under the radar. Usually people brag about almonds. I mean, almonds are absolutely fantastic. I eat plenty of almonds, but walnuts also great source of omega-3. And omega-3 are so powerful to reduce inflammation. And also they're great healthy fat to keep our skin moisturized, hydrated, and plump. And then on number 4, I would say berries. I mean, I guess I'm not saying anything particularly original, but any kind of berries are loaded with antioxidant and vitamin C. Vitamin C is so important because it supports collagen production. So collagen production tend to slow down as we go into our late 20s. So we really want to have a diet that supports collagen production. And collagen is what keeps your skin plump and youthful. So having plenty of vitamin C in your diet is really, really important to support your skin health as well.
I mean, I love this kind of stuff. It's not boring to me, but I guess where I'll go next, though, is thank you for sharing those. I just had walnuts this morning for breakfast.
Oh,
and
amazing.
I am with you on the sweet potatoes. I love them.
Love that.
I wanted to ask you, so I'm holding up your book for those who are watching online, this beautiful cover. It's so gorgeous.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you how you found, how did you get inspired to write all of these amazing recipes? How did this inspiration come about?
Well, I've been doing what I'm doing for about 5 years now. So I do love cooking so much. It kind of becomes second nature, really. And I just want to create a recipe which they're really wholesome, really tasty, and really simple as well. And they also pack a nutritional punch. Because really I think that's the winning combination. That's the winning formula. Nobody wants sweet, boring food. I hate bland food. And, I'm Italian, so my food needs to be tasty because life is short as well. You want to enjoy yourself when you eat, and food should be pleasure. Food should be something that we enjoy and we look forward to. So I'm definitely not about deprivation, but I'm also about feeling good. So when I eat something that after I eat it, I feel amazing. I feel energized. I don't feel sluggish. I don't feel like I need to take a nap. And I want something that I know is going to support my longevity and my skin health as I get older. So that's kind of the inspiration always behind any recipe I share, either in my book or on my social media, because I do believe that you can have incredibly tasty food that actually tastes delicious as well. And it's not too complicated.
Yeah, I totally agree. It takes some, like you were saying earlier, it does take a while for your palate to adjust, especially if you're used to that high processed, a lot of salt, a lot of sugar. Those things are addicting and your palate gets used to that overload of sensory feedback. So it does take some time, so be patient with yourself. Alyssa, I was reading about your own journey and, you come from an Italian family, and I'm curious, is most of your family still in Italy? And, when you're around your family, is this challenging for you to uphold, especially if you're traveling back to Italy and it's like, oh my gosh, how do you
I know. I'm in Italy right now, by the way.
Oh, you are?
That's my background. It's quite different from my London flat. I'm in Italy right now. Yes and no. I do think things have changed in the past few years. So there is definitely more plant-based option, even in Italy as well. I'm also from the countryside. So my dad has always grown his own fruit and vegetable. I've been very, very lucky to have been brought up in a family where we always cook from scratch. And there was a lot of emphasis on fruit and vegetables, even though my family was never plant-based or vegetarian or anything like that. There was always a big emphasis of eating, lots of vegetables and to make sure everything was cooked from scratch. So no, I don't find it particularly difficult. But yeah, I do get the odd question from my aunties. Well, are you still not eating any cheese or anything like that? But, we just laugh about it. It's really not a big issue.
Well, so when you're there, do you make your own food, or do they just say, here, Alyssa, this is for you. It doesn't have any cheese or meat in it.
My auntie, bless her, if I do go around for her for lunch, she would buy some tofu because she knows I'm coming. Although she's kind of really doesn't know what to do with tofu. It's always like a mixed result, but I do appreciate the effort, obviously. And when I'm at home with my dad, I cook, so we're good for that. And he eats anything anyway, so he's not fussy at all.
Okay, that's helpful. Good to know.
Yeah.
I wanted to, one of the themes across the book is the emphasis on the mind-body connection and the mind-body method. And there's a lot of really cool rituals in here. In the intro, I was saying it's not just a cookbook. It's not just recipes for food to feed yourself with, but it's also things you can put on your skin to make your, like a face mask or a body scrub.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to hear you talk more about your own personal rituals and why it's so important to you to incorporate that mind-body method into this.
Yeah.
It's more like a lifestyle, really.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, stress can play a massive, massive role in on our skin because it does. Stress affects everything. It stress our hormones, our sleep pattern, and when we don't sleep well, we then maybe tend to overeat or eat things that might not be so healthy. And also, we don't look great when we don't sleep well. Let's be honest. There's no eye cream out in the market that will give you the same result as a good night's sleep. Let's be honest. So there are rituals which I love to do in my day-to-day life when it comes to kind of like keeping my stress level low. So I love, for example, to have a nice bath. There is a recipe in the book for some bath salts, for example, which is very relaxing with lavender and chamomile. I love to take my time with my skincare and maybe do myself a nice body scrub as well, and do a massage with a face oil, which you can find in the book as well. It's really just taking some time out of your day to really look after yourself and take some time to be present, to be to ground yourself. Stay away from your phone, stay away from screens, and, just really look after yourself in many ways. Because I do think, if you are, going through some skin issues, they can be so hard and it can really affect your confidence and self-esteem. And ultimately, you need to be able to show yourself some love and compassion, no matter what stage of your journey you're in. I think when I was really breaking out, I just really, really even hate looking at myself in the mirror. I know it sounds very dramatic, but I just did not like the way I looked at all. And I remember I had to really come back to self-love and self-compassion and remind myself that everything will pass. And I really had to love myself to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to really take care of myself in all aspects. And I'm sure, and I know with all this love and, and dedication, my skin will clear. So, yeah, I also love to meditate. It's great to really help with stress level. I like to, switch off my phone whenever I can. I like 8 p.m. at night and don't sleep with it. Make sure I get out every day, get some sunlight, make sure I move my body. Just really kind of trying to find a lifestyle that works for you and makes you feel great. I think that's just so, so important. And I think your skin will follow that.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Rosie always asks this question at the end of the podcast about, I think in your case, Alyssa, looking back on your 15-year-old self, going through this journey. And it sounded to me like, correct me if I misunderstood this, the real transformation didn't start to become something so needed until you were in your 20s. So maybe at 15, I'm not sure what was going on. But the question is, what advice would you give your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now about that journey that you went through in your 20s and beyond?
I guess I would say probably, when we're young, we just think we know it all and we know nothing, I guess. But I probably would say look after yourself. You can't look after your body. You only have one. You can't swap your body for someone else. You got to love what you've been given, no matter whether no matter what flaws you see in yourself, in your body. You just have to really look after it like it's sacred, because it really is. Like, you can't change it, and it's going to be with you for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not. So I'll probably say look after yourself, make sure you find time to love yourself, be self-compassionate, don't be so harsh on yourself. And yeah, I guess loving yourself more, that's what really I would say to my younger self, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, good advice. So I'm going to hold the book up one more time. This is the cookbook we've been referring to, Happy Skin Kitchen, over 100 plant-based recipes to nourish your skin from the inside out. And it's truly a work of art. I just like to open it and look at the pictures. They're beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
But lots of really accessible ingredients. What I love about these recipes is it's everything on the list is something that I'm like, I know what that is. I can go to the store and get it very easily.
Yeah, I know. There was definitely Yeah, it was
Go ahead.
intentional. Like I really just wanted to make sure that everything was simple ingredients you can find at your grocery store. So lots of nuts and seeds, pulses, chickpeas, beans, lentils, whole grains, and fruits and vegetables. That's really kind of, the backbone of all my recipes. As I said, I don't think healthy eating needs to be complicated. I don't think it needs to be expensive. I think it should be easy, and it also should be really tasty.
I do actually have one more question about the ingredients.
Yeah.
I noticed you use coconut yogurt quite often.
Yeah.
And is that coconut yogurt store-bought, or is it something you make yourself?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many good brands out there at the moment when it comes to, I would say, some of the dairy replacement. And coconut yogurt is always one of my favorite because one of the brand I use here in the UK is literally just coconut milk or cream and then probiotics in it. There is no sugar, there is no gums or anything like that. And, if you don't eat dairy, then it's a great replacement and it makes everything more delicious, like, your overnight oats or, it just makes it tastier. So it's a great one if you don't eat dairy.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I was curious about that. Oh, and sorry, I told you that was my last question, but I actually have two more.
That's okay, no worries.
And if you have time, they'll be shorter ones. The next to last question is, so this book came out in January of 2024, which this podcast episode will be coming out in June of 2024. And I'm just curious, between January and June, how's life been? Are there any new projects? Are you taking a break from writing? Is there anything you're looking forward to?
Well, I'm not planning to write another book yet. You never know. Maybe one day I will. I need to speak to my editor. No, I've just been working on, my own things, my own recipes. People can find me on Instagram at Happy Skin Kitchen. I post weekly content. So if you want more recipe from me, you can make sure to follow me there, and you always find some new recipe videos every single week. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been working on.
Great. Well, that was my last question, is where can people go to find you and follow you, and, where are you most active? So
yeah, I would say
happyskinkitchen.com.
definitely Instagram. Yeah. Instagram is definitely where I'm most active. You can also find me on TikTok, but Instagram is where I usually post more often because I like it more. So it's simply Happy Skin Kitchen. Type it in and I will definitely pop up.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Elisa. I'm so grateful we got to have you on the show today. It's been such a pleasure, and I have been really loving your book. So those listening, if you're inspired, please go support Elisa and check out this amazing book. It is life-changing.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been so lovely to be here.
Hey friends, thank you so much for listening to the Radically Love podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps. Also, don't forget to check out the Mindful Love Hub on Substack. This episode was produced by Tessa Tovar, music by DJ Taz Rashid.